Hey everyone, this is Andrew from Private Investigator Advice, and this is the Private Investigator Advice podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to another podcast. This is going to be episode 103, and before we get into what it's about and all that kind of good stuff, let me let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Private Investigator Advice. Private Investigator Advice is selling the Private Investigator Document Bundle, which has the surveillance report template, the retainer agreement, and the client intake request form. What I did was I bundled it up and made it cheaper. So it was like an incentive to get all three. And I definitely want you to take that out, check that out. The surveillance report template has the template, the example report, a video walkthrough. I just want to make sure everybody knows what to put in a surveillance report. My report examples, a pretty good example to follow. The other one is a retainer agreement. Every business needs a retainer agreement if you're a private investigator. It doesn't mean you're always going to use it, but you definitely want to have it on hand so everybody knows what's going on with the assignment. Expectations are set. You know who you're getting paid from, how you're getting paid, what you're getting paid for, and the client knows all this stuff as well. So you really want to fill in all the blanks so there's really no gray area for interpretation. You really want to have it all laid out. And that's why I created the retainer agreement. It's what I use. Sometimes I take some stuff out. Sometimes I add some stuff in, but this is the stock that I use every time. I'm always going to make variations to it because not every case is the same. So anyways, and you also got the client intake form, basically getting all the proper information from your client. Listen, it's not a fancy document, folks, but it gets the job done. And you can definitely add to it. All these documents are Word documents, except for I think the example report's a PDF. You can't mess with that, I don't think. Anyways, so definitely check that out. It's on a sale. It's on a discount. I'm going to have a link to that if you're watching this on YouTube, it's going to be in the video notes. If you are watching this or listening to this on the podcast app, it'll be in those notes. And if you're watching this on the actual article, then it'll be there somewhere as well. So definitely check that out. Thank you guys. Anyways, okay. So, subscribing, I definitely want to cover that before I get into this. And so real quick, if you're listening to this on your podcast app, if you're iTunes or whatever you're listening to it on, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification button on there when you subscribe. So you get notified anytime a new video podcast comes out or any other training or review that I do. You'll be notified and you won't have to wait for me to post it on Facebook. And of course, follow me on Facebook. All right. So this podcast is called What Do Private Investigators Wear? So something to that effect. You get the point. What do we wear? Why do we wear it? One of the things that always, seriously, and it's just one of those things that really irks me to this day, is, whenever, I know that stereotypical view of a private investigator wearing, what are those little fedora hats, and I don't know, sometimes they always got the I don't know what's called, the little circle glass. Somebody help me here. Anyone? I can't even think of it right now. But anyways, and they got the cigar sometimes, and they've got, I think there's the people with the hunter's cap sometimes in movies and pictures, and they got the trench coat people. That's another one that's a stereotypical view of a private investigator. And just, that really bothers me. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it came from movies or whatnot. I'm not quite sure. I probably should research that. But anyways, that's the stereotypical view. So in this podcast, I'm going to kind of go over my tips for what you should wear for different types of assignments, for different types of situations. And I'm going to talk about clothes in general as a private investigator, some tips that I'm going to give you, because I've got some experience of some things that have happened to me over the years. So, anyways, private investigators, we don't have a, like a uniform that we wear, at least in most cases. Maybe some companies require their investigators to do that, but not that I know of. So what we're going to talk right now, we're going to talk about what private investigators wear on surveillance assignments. Now, I've seen private investigators wear a variety of things on surveillance assignments. I've seen them dress super casual with shorts and a t-shirt and tennis shoes. And then I've seen people dress like business casual, like they're wearing khakis, they're wearing like some kind of like a dress shoe kind of, and a button-up shirt or even a polo. They look very spiffy. And I've seen, so I've seen people do that. And so there's a variety of things. What I want to encourage personally is that, you wear something that's going to be comfortable for you when you're on surveillance. I know, listen, guys, we're out there for a long time. We're driving to assignments that are far away. We're sitting in our car for extended periods of time. We want to be comfortable, right? We don't want to be all like, wearing something tight or restricting. So, but you also want to wear something that's going to be appropriate for the climate that you're in, of course. I'm not expecting you guys to, be all dressed up on a surveillance, unless it's required, on a hot summer day when you can't turn the air on or something. So I hope that makes sense. No matter what you decide to wear during a surveillance, you always should have some extra clothes with you. And there's going to be a variety of reasons why, which I'm going to get into now. So one of the first reasons you're going to, real quick before I get into that. I also recommend no matter what you're wearing during surveillance, I'm sorry, I almost like jumped into a whole nother topic I'm not even ready for it yet. I recommend dark colored clothing. I recommend, like, if you could see the shirt here, like it has a nice big, logo, American, what does it say? American vintage. I recommend like shirts that don't have logos, that are dark. And there's several reasons for that. One of the main reasons is we're trying not to be recognizable. We don't want anything that's going to draw attention to us or that's going to be memorable. And so a blank shirt, no matter what color it is better, in my opinion, than a shirt with logos on it. Now, I'm not going to say that you're never going to have a shirt like that one day that you're wearing, but if you can, like, try to avoid anything that's bright, that's going to stand out. Don't be walking around with a neon shirt during a surveillance. That's not ideal. But yeah, I recommend dark. And I'm also always like paranoid when I'm driving. Like, I don't want them to recognize anything that I'm wearing if they're looking through the rearview mirror or something like that. Or, a passenger's like looking in the back, like, well, what is he wearing? What does he look like? I don't want them to recognize anything when I get out of, when I'm in my car. So if I get out of my car, they're not going to be able to point anything out if indeed an assignment goes that way. So anyways, I hope that helps you. Again, it's really all about fitting in and not standing out and blending in. That's our goal as private investigators. So back to what I was saying here, bringing additional clothes for surveillance. Why do we need to do that? Well, the first reason is we want to change our appearance. So a lot of times this has always happened to me where someone I'm following goes into a restaurant and I go in there and I sit close to them and I'm wearing a specific thing. Whatever I'm wearing, doesn't really matter. And then, they leave the restaurant and I follow them and then they go to the mall and I'm like, crap, I want to follow them in there too, right? I want to get video. And so what I end up doing is maybe I'll change my shirt, maybe I'll put a jacket on, maybe a sweatshirt on, something to break up my appearance to where I don't look like I did when we were just sitting in that restaurant together. And not only is it for the fact that I want them not to recognize me, but I want to feel better about being in there, because sometimes we can get in our own heads. And I have found personally that if I change something up, that I feel more confident about doing like going in a second time to another, even though I spent maybe an hour next to them, I can go into another location and even feel confident about going in there because I've changed my appearance in some way. So that's another mind thing that'll help you. You also want to have extra clothes for specific situations. So one situation in particular that always seems to come up for me is somebody goes into a gym. And if I do not have the proper attire for the gym, they're not going to let me in the gym. I might stand outside, they might give me a walkthrough, but they're not going to let me participate in the gym. So and the reason I bring this, guys, because it's happened to me, and trust me, it'll happen to you too. So have some shorts on hand, have some kind of workout attire on hand. They're not going to let you in with jeans. So just have that in mind. Have a little towel, just be ready as if you were going to be a guest there to work out. And that'll make sure that nothing really stops you. So let's say, you're out there doing surveillance and the person you're following goes into a fancier establishment. Maybe it's a nicer restaurant or it's a nightclub or something like that. those places may have dress codes. So shirts and a tank top is not going to fly. So you want to have some nicer clothes. Maybe, I mean, it doesn't, I'm not talking about spending $150, $200 on an outfit here, guys, but like have a polo in your car, maybe a button up shirt, something that you could go to if you're in one of these situations, and maybe some khaki pants or something like that. And some, maybe not your favorite dress shoes, but just a pair of dress shoes in there. Yeah, something that's going to, again, make you be able to fit into those situations or get you through the front door. You might be in a club, and if you are not dressed appropriately, they won't let you in. So, yeah, that's another reason why you want to have that. You also want to have extra clothes, which if you do everything we're talking about right now, you'll already be covered here. But you want to have extra clothes for unexpected overnight stays. Again, so, maybe someone travels out of town, you follow them, you stay in the same hotel or whatever, and you have clothes to change up. Again, you want to feel clean. You want to be rocking dirty clothes from the day before and stinking it up. And also you want to change your appearance just in case you spent any time near the person you've been videotaping. Again, change your appearance up. Okay, the next thing you want to take with you in regards to clothes is you want to have warm clothing. I talked about this as a couple of years ago, and I'm going to link to it in the article. But it was a surveillance where I was going in the mountains. I mean, it was a town, but it was winter, and it was freezing temperatures, below freezing. It was like 18 degrees or something like that. And I was fine. I'm like, just dressed normal, shirt, jeans. And then my heater broke, and I was freezing. Like, I was freaking out because I was so cold. And I had my jacket. It just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. I didn't have gloves. I didn't have a hat. I was so miserable. I can't even tell you. Like, it was so miserable that I had to write something about it to let you guys know about it. So, be prepared. Be prepared. Like, be over prepared for stuff like that. Bring blankets in the car. Have gloves if you need them, a beanie, something, keep yourself warm, whatever it's going to be. I mean, listen, you know where you live, you know the weather in your area, just be prepared. Okay. So now we've kind of covered the things for surveillance. Let's talk about the different types of things you might come across. And really it comes down to a few more things here. And for me, it's always been like field work where I'm like taking photos of something or, measuring things, out and about, wherever it could be. It could be in front of a movie theater. It could be like there was a crack in the sidewalk and I'm out there like taking measurements, taking photos, talking to people, even doing interviews in those some situations. And so what do you dress for like that, right? Well, in most cases, you're going to want to dress business casual in the sense of maybe like a button-up shirt. You're going to have a polo, just some dress shoes, something to that effect, because you want to be professional. You want to dress professional in those, but you still want to be able to be like, not worried about necessarily maybe messing up your clothes, if you have to get down and take photos or measurements or whatever. But you're engaging with people. You want to dress professional. In interviewing, I used to do a lot of interviews. It was like my full-time gig, just interviewing people all the time. We'd be interviewing people in their homes, and some of these people are millionaires. It could be in their house, in their $1 million mansions, or it could be in a Starbucks. Either way, for me, again, it was more business casual. I would wear a very nice polo, again, khakis or some dress pants of some nature, dress shoes. I don't know that I've ever worn a tie or anything like that to interviewing people. Again, most of the stuff that I do is insurance work, but that's plenty of dress up for those situations. Usually those interviews go about, if you're, no more than 2.5 hours per person. Usually that's kind of like the max, unless you're, in an attorney's office and that could get a little bit slower. But so that's what I would advise for that. There are going to be situations where you're doing field work and you're taking photos in different areas. Like maybe, that you're going to be like in the woods or something, and you're going to be like hiking to an area to photograph something or something to that effect. Of course, maybe some dress, maybe some nice jean dress pants with some appropriate shoes, or even the khakis, but change the shoes up. You don't want to be rocking dress shoes through the woods. So of course, take those things into consideration. Do the best you can. So we talked about interviews. We talked about field work. Yeah, basically it comes down to the polo or the dress shirt and some nice, we're not dressing. I'm not, wearing the suit pants or anything like that to these things. Not by any means. So anyways, and here's another thing that I would think about. Like, so I when I do interviews, a lot of the times they're arranged, right? We make a phone call and I'll say, all right, well, I'll be there in such and such time. And then I get there and they're like, they won't let me in their house. And so I've done interviews in my car. I've done interviews on the curb of an apartment parking lot because she wouldn't let me in her house and I didn't want her in my car. So I'm just sitting there with a recorder, my papers, like everything's like unorganized. Like I've done interviews on the back of a tailgate of a truck. Like, they happen everywhere. So this is where my mind is going. So if somebody's listening to this going, no way, dude, suit and tie and slacks, like, man, you haven't done enough interviews. Like, because I'm not dressing like that, rocking, sitting on doggone curb to do an interview, right? Like, just not gonna. I'm not gonna wear my $400 suit pants or whatever. No, I'm not gonna do it. So, anyways, and another reason, just to kind of go down the interview road about dressing. So, I'm very much about trying to not be an intimidating factor, an intimidating person when I do the interview. A lot of people, they don't know what's going to happen during an interview. They don't know if you're going to interrogate them. They just don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. They've never done one before, so they don't know what to expect. And even if you tell them like, hey, this is what's going to happen, it's not a big deal. You really play down the interview. There's still a lot of anxiety and defensiveness and they just maybe not as open. So I'm very much about trying to lower the walls of someone's defensiveness. And so that's another reason why I'm not like, oh, I'm going to go suit it up for an interview. Sometimes I'm interviewing like young adults. They got into a car accident, and I don't want them to, I want them just to come clean, tell me everything that I need to know. So the insurance company has all the, proper information. And I feel like if someone's overdressed, for something like that could be very intimidating for the person that, that's being interviewed. That's where I'm coming from, all about kind of lowering the defensives, to get that information. Now some people are super, and I don't want to use this word, harshly, but they don't dress professional enough for the interviews, and they will try to justify it being for the same reasons I just mentioned, being like, well, I don't want them to, I want them to think I'm one of them and this and that. And so they'll wear jeans and like a t-shirt, and that's completely unprofessional and probably inappropriate to be representing an investigation company or an insurance company for that matter, or, whoever you're representing. I think what I'm advising you guys to wear is not a big deal. It's not an expensive thing. You can literally go to Walmart, pick something up, like a whole ensemble probably for $60. Like, that's nothing. So yeah, consider that. All right. And by the way, guys, you guys don't need to have like 20 different outfits for this job. Like if you wear a polo and some, whatever, some khaki pants, and you have some nice shoes, right? You don't need to switch your outfit for, every day, clean it, and probably only worn it for a couple hours to begin with. Hang it back up. Like, unless you've, soiled it somehow, like, hang it back up. You're going to wear it tomorrow and you're going to interview somebody completely different. So as long as the darn thing doesn't stink, you're fine. You don't need 20 outfits for interviews and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? All right. Okay, so let's talk about court appearances. This is something else that you may have to encounter as a private investigator. You may have to show up for court. So I would highly advise against jeans and t-shirts. Again, that's not probably the way you want to go for court appearances. I would dress again, no less fancy, if that's a word, or a phrase, no less fancy than. Wear a nice polo. I would probably aim for the button-up shirt for those situations. If you want to do the tie, that's fine. You don't necessarily have to do a suit. If you want to do a suit, that's fine. More times than not, I've been in court where it's like a workers' comp thing or whatever, insurance related. You've got the judge, you got one lawyer on one side, you got lawyers on the other side. Sometimes the lawyers aren't even wearing suits. Like, they're just like, casual as well. business casual. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you feel really nervous about it when you're going to court, maybe for the first time, you feel like you need to overdress, and fine. Once you go there, you realize that not everybody's dressed up and it doesn't really play a part. But you do want to leave a good impression when you go to court. Just like anything we do in life, people can have perceptions when they see you. And so, if you're dressed very nicely, hey, that's a good impression on somebody. If you dress like you don't care, that an automatic impression might be like, well, I don't know about this guy or this woman. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, listen, that's just how life is, unfortunately. So, but just kind of keep that in mind. Business casual, I think, or just, button-up shirt, polo, khakis, or dress pants, something to that effect. Some nice shoes. You don't have to wear a tie necessarily, but if you do, sweet, do it. Okay. So that's all I've got on that stuff. So now this is an area where I added this to the article just because it was on my mind. And, listen, I don't want anybody to take any offense to any of this stuff that I'm about to say. That's not the intention of it. But this is what not to wear as a private investigator. So if for some reason you guys are wearing this, please take this with a grain of salt. So the first thing I would say, and we kind of touched on it at the beginning here. Now, if you're rocking a fedora, I would not rock a fedora during business hours. I mean, I think that would be very stereotypical, and I don't know if anybody would take you as serious rather. But but don't get me wrong. I love them. I love those types of hats. I always try one on whenever I see one. I just got a head that doesn't necessarily go with it, so I never can kind of rock it. Now, maybe someday I will, but it won't be in the context of being a private investigator. Just be in the context of being Andrew. So, anyways, just kind of keep that in mind. In association with the fedora, we want to avoid trench coats. Now, listen, I understand that it's pretty common in probably some areas where people wear trench coats all the time. When you're protecting yourself from the elements. If you're trying to imitate something you've seen on TV, let's avoid that if possible. I think that we'd totally be fitting that movie character if we wore the fedora and the trench coat. So if we can avoid that, sweet. Another one is the Hawaiian shirt. Now listen, Magnum PI made that popular. That is fantastic, but please don't wear a Hawaiian shirt on a surveillance unless you're fitting in somewhere where it's Hawaiian Day or something like that. Again, that's a shirt that may stand out, in a crowd or be memorable. So let's leave that at home, and let's definitely leave that at home during our interviewing and our court appearances. If you're a Hawaiian shirt guy, sweet. Listen, my kids got some, my family members got them. I just don't know that there's always going to be a place for that at work. So, and we've got a pretty liberal kind of occupation in the sense we get to do a lot of different things that most people don't get to do and travel around, but I just don't think that's just going to fit. The next one that I would be wary of is tactical cargo pants. This is something that it's again one of those things that it just rubs me the wrong way if I see somebody wearing those and they're not on the SWAT team, right? So, I'm sure there's a place for them. Maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking I'm a total jerk by saying that, but again, I think it's one of those things that kind of stands out if you're trying to wear like these police cargo pants. I think this is one of those things that stands out. And of course, don't wear them to interviews or anything like that. But if there's a functional purpose for them while you're out there, then I get it. But other than that, stay away from them. And I'm envisioning like a SWAT team when I see those in my brain, right? So anyways, okay. The next one I would avoid is camouflage. Unless it's serving a purpose, it's serving the purpose in your investigation where I don't even know what you'd be doing, but because I don't do all that stuff anymore. I don't get into the woods like I used to. If you find the need to wear camouflage, sweet. But if it's just an everyday thing on surveillance, I would say no, don't do that. Because when you're approached by neighbors and things like that, and you've been in your car for 5 hours straight, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing here? And why are you all in camouflage?" Like that's just going to draw unnecessary attention. And I don't think any pretext is going to get you out of that necessarily from diffusing the situation and getting someone to believe you're there for a legitimate purpose. So, okay, guys. So that is my thoughts on private investigator clothing. Now, I did a Facebook Live. I do Facebook's Lives a lot now. I don't know how that started, but it's happening. And so my question to private investigators that were on the Facebook Live, or anybody that was listening, was like, hey, I want you to contribute in the comment section of this podcast, of this article. So if you're reading the article along with the video, please comment in there and let me know your thoughts. Like, do you have some other things that you would recommend, or is there something specific that you wear that's pretty common in your workplace area? Or do you totally disagree with me? Please don't disagree with me. That's going to totally hurt my feelings. I'm just kidding. But yeah, definitely I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think this is one of those topics that, there's a lot of people from a lot of different areas that have a lot of thoughts on this. Maybe they're all the same, but yeah, I definitely want to hear about it. So I think that's it, guys. I think we're done for this podcast. I thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely subscribe and follow me on the Facebook pages. And I definitely always recommend people sign up for the email newsletter. I've been kind of slow at sending those out recently. I've been kind of overwhelmed with some other things. But basically, the email newsletter just kind of touches bases each week at what we talked about. So if for some reason you missed anything, you'll get it on there. And, you always kind of get a little more insight, about me and what's going on in the PI advice world over here. So anyways, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day and do some learning, be a student, and find some mentors. It doesn't have to be a PI mentor. It could be a business mentor. It could be a marketing mentor. It could just be a mentor. So yeah, anyways, look for that. And I will see you guys on the next podcast. Have a great day.